Hi, I'm Rhea C. Sibi, and I will be discussing Chapter 17, Liquidity Risk. There are two causes of liquidity risk. One is liability side, in which FI's liability holders, such as depositors or insurance policy holders, seek to cash in their financial claims immediately. Another is asset side, in which borrower exercise their loan commitments and other credit line. There are two alternative methods of liquidity risk management. First is purchase liquidity management, in which DI manager turn to market to purchase fund. Second is stored liquidity management, that is, the FI could liquidate some of its assets, utilizing its stored liquidity. There are four ways to measure liquidity exposures. First is sources and uses of liquidity, in which a useful tool is the net liquidity statement, that lists sources and uses of liquidity, and thus provides a measure of a DI's net liquidity position. Another way to measure a DI's liquidity exposure is to compare certain key ratios and balance sheet features of the DI, such as its loans to deposits, borrowed funds to total assets, and commitments to lend to assets ratios, with those of DIs of a similar size and geographic location. A high ratio of loans to deposits and borrowed funds to total assets means that the DI relies heavily on the short-term money market rather than on core deposits to fund loans. Similarly, a high ratio of loan commitments to assets indicates the need for a high degree of liquidity to fund any unexpected takedowns of these loans. A third way to measure liquidity risk is to use a liquidity index. This index measures the potential losses an FI could suffer from a sudden or fire sale disposal of assets compared with the amount it would receive at a fair market value established under normal market sale conditions. The greater the differences between immediate fire sale asset prices and fair market prices, the less liquid is the DI's portfolio of assets. A fourth way to measure liquidity risk exposure is to determine the DI's financing gap. The larger a DI's financing gap and liquid asset holdings, the larger the amount of funds it needs to borrow in the money markets, and the greater is its exposure to liquidity problems from such a reliance.
Created using Powtoon.